I'm Pax. This is a different type of video than you're used to. This is what I call an artist talk. It is a analysis type of video where I do analysis on an animation that I find very interesting, and hopefully I can explain some of what the animator did to make it so amazing. But before that, look at the animation. We're going to be doing Vibrant Eyes, animated by Sock, and the song is by CG5. You can find it on CG5's YouTube channel or in the link below, or there's probably going to be tags in this video somewhere. Both of their links. Please go check them out. It is an amazing video. The song, I love animation, I love it all. In this video, we're not going to be doing the song. I'm muting it completely through. I did not get permission from CG5 to review the song, so we're not reviewing the song. That's how that works. And I don't know anything about songs, so that's that. But I did get a permission from Sock, so we are going to be reviewing their animation for this. I think you'll find it hopefully enlightening. But before we get into it, there's a couple things to review, kind of get the basis of. So I figured we'd do it on this black screen. I do ask if you do enjoy any part of this or you learn anything to subscribe. I do Speedpaint storyboards of my own. Maybe you want to go check those out. I am trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and we only have about 30-ish to go. And maybe you can like this video to boost my self-confidence. I don't really do pre-recorded stuff like this. This is somehow harder than live streams, so anyways, go and review some of this stuff, shall we? First of all, Sock's animation style. They do something a little different than what you normally see on YouTube. Normally see from YouTube in general. They animate on 3. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me explain to you. Animating on 3s is semi-interesting. You might be thinking, what the heck, Pax? What is 1s, what is 2s, and what is 3s, and what does that mean? Well, this is frames per second, all right? So, how many frames per second? So let's write frames per second. So this is how many frames you'll get in a second, and this is you'll kind of understand most of this. So 1s is, think of like traditional Disney animation. You've got a ball, and it slowly goes down. Each frame is a different scene. So it's a different drawing for each frame. And that is 1 frame per second, and that's animating on 1s. Each of the is 1 frame. On 2s is your ball is the same location every 2 frames. This is for a little more slower animation. You usually do this for standstills or for conversation, and you see a lot of the animated on 2s for more of and it keeps going and it keeps going, but you see this more on YouTube. This is a lot easier to do. The only time you see it with like fast ones on YouTube is usually if it is doing really quick motion, like a battle scene or someone's running. It will be animated on 1s. What Sock does for most of their animations is they animate on 3s. So instead of every 1 frame, it is a different image, or every 2 frames, where every second image is a different image. It's every 3 image. So it'd be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It gives us a little more pause sort of style. It gives this little, I really like it, and if you can pull it off well, it's very nice, but you have to have the skill to pull it off well. It is very interesting to see that Sock does this, and they pull it off really well. So if you're looking at it and you're like, what the heck, why does this animation look so different? It's because they animate mostly on 3s. They may switch to 2s and 1s every once in a while, but the majority of their animation is on 3s, which you don't see much in YouTube animation, so that is very interesting. So props to them for that. Second thing I want to introduce the idea of is elements of art. Now, with my previous artist talks, I have talked about a couple of these things before. I know with my last one on my own animatic, I focused a lot on value, but for this one, we're gonna be more or less focusing only on line and shape for now. We're gonna probably touch a bit on texture, but I think this animation focuses most on line and shape, and this is very interesting. So Now you might be thinking, okay, I know what a line and a shape is. This is a shape and this is a line. Yes, that's line shape. Got it. But let me explain something to you. Line is man-made. Line does not exist in the natural world. Line is an illusion that people have made to create art. And it is a trick that we use to make you think that there's a person. So, for example, we've got like a smiley face. That's a line. When you see lines in real life, they're not like that. In real life, there is only shape and form. And shape, let's see if we can just draw, would be like this, but if we shaded it like that. This is a shape, and this is a line. This is more natural, while this is man-made. Shape is the natural form of line, but you can have shapes that make up or seem like there is a line there. For example, if we kind of go to a darker and we kind of draw this out, let's say if we're trying to get a face, right? In real life, it would be more like this. Right? So then you might see a nose here. But what's really happening is just two shapes are connecting and making you see a line that's not really there. So that looks like a nose, and you kind of see a person, but there's no line. It is just two shapes connecting to each other. And this is what Sock does a lot in this animation. And it's a very interesting technique, and very big props to them, because a lot of artists on the internet, and just in general, tons of artists, use line mainly. Sock seems to use shape mainly. So the line, again, if we were going to do the same sort of like thing, it would be more like this. That's a line. And it's the same sort of shape, same sort of, it gets the same message across, but this is done with line and this is done with shape. So this is some interesting techniques that we need to just cover real fast before we going into this, and just make sure you kind of understand what we're going with. So without further ado, let's get into this. We got that Enderman text fading in the background, and we have text in the foreground coming into more focus, and we have that sort of grainy text around all. Fades even more out. Then we start with the Ranboo. So this is what I'm talking about with shape. So Sock does this thing where they draw or they outline. They make a shape of the character or wherever they're going to draw in white first, and they make a silhouette out of white, and then they layer different shapes on top of it to make up the character. So like this is Ranboo completely made out of white to give that nice white outline, and then they layer this blue shape on top of it to give this nice sort of idea that his face color. Again, this is all one shape right here. Again, with this is all one shape overlaid with the white. So the white is the bottom color, and this is one shape. Here, they have one shape here, which makes up that side of the hair. All of this is shapes, and look, here's a shape to kind of indicate the mouth. All of this is shaped, layered on the white. So it's kind of like if you've ever seen a shadow box or a light box where you have the frame of the box, right, that the light passes through, but then you have layers of cutouts that you put through that make up the image that you're trying to get to. So when you're looking straight on, you can see a whole image, but in reality, they're just different layers. And they shine it through, so it kind of looks like a whole image. This is what Sock is doing with Ranboo in most of the images in this piece. And even if they are doing this, they are having the other layers interact with other layers. So what's happening, like here, this this could be considered a line, but I think it's a shape that's overlapping. This darker color is overlapping the blue of the background. So you get this kind of darker line on this side and the white line on that side. Same with this color. This color is just the red, but it's being overlapped with the blue. And same with the crown up here. You can see the yellows being overlapped by the blue. It's almost like a stamp, like Sock had stamps and they just push them down on each side. Yeah, and it's very, very nice. You can also see this noise here. So noise is this kind of grainy effect. And this will be what I'm referring to as noise in this piece. And you will see the kind of attention to it and the kind of meaning to it, which I've seen. Let's see if we can get it better. Okay, so we have Ranboo looking down at his hands. We're going to be focusing mainly here with the hands coming up. So we're going to be kind of focusing on this area in a minute. But what I really want to point out is this implied line. You might be asking yourself, what the heck is an implied line? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a line that's implied. One of the best examples is Ranboo's hair right here, or Ranboo's nose. There is no lines to give the idea that there is a nose. Like most artists would just be like, oh yeah, nose. We'll just draw a nose in here. But Sock doesn't do that. They take this shape and they curve it slightly and then have it come down to imply that there is a nose here. And you see, your brain sees it as a nose because your brain's like, oh, this is a face, there needs to be a nose here. So they take that small indent as a nose. Same here. They put just the blue shape here to indicate the side of the face, and then they stop it. But your brain understands that the hairline continues. And it doesn't see it as, because really what it should be is this should just be part of the head, but our brains are like, no, 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 this is the hairline. And our brain sees it like that, which is very good for our brain because this would be very cursed otherwise, because all of this, like this ear, wouldn't exist without implied lines and our brains interpreting implied lines. The same with this mouth. There is only a weird shape here, probably because there is no lines here, because I count this as a shape as well. It is just a weird sort of pattern, but there's no real lines here, but you still see it as a mouth. So you'll see this a lot. Same with the hands here. Very implied here. The line kind of cuts off here with the finger, but you still see that as a finger without going into too much detail. So we have Ranboo's eyes. We're kind of looking, kind of circling in this area because his hands are out, but you're mainly focusing on his face because you don't really want to go down to these words. So your eyes are mainly in this general area. You have the hands come out. So it's kind of this open circle here. And then as he pulls back, you kind of come back with him. He pulls his hands up, which closes our circle to his face. And then he leans back, which again closes our circle to his face. So we're focusing mainly at this point here. And then here's some more example of implied line. You see the knuckles, you see fingers here when there's really just this. There's no lines here to indicate that there is an actual hand, but you see a hand. Or this, you see a fist here as well, but there is no lines here. Except for these, but that is very minimalistic. But you still see a closed fist. It's implied. And then we're brought up. You wanted to see that transition. We're kind of focused on his face here. So then when we transition, it's a very easy jump for our eye to come down here to his eye, which we're going to be looking over here in a second. So Sock is going to have us follow his eyes up there. But we can see closer to implied line here. So with this shape, right? This is another shape. So we have a shape here. Shape come up. Very nice on top of the white. We have a nice noise effect on this shape to show it's kind of like fading out. You can see that red, and right here, you can really tell that this red is overlapping this blue, which is the same color as this color right here. So we know that this is red on this side. And this is very nice to see. And you also, here's another implied where you can tell this is his face without barely any line. You can tell this is a nose with barely any clues. Very used to implied. So his eyes are going to start moving this way. So we start getting that sort of opening up feeling and moving this way. Again, the pupils look this way, so what we're going to do, we're going to follow those pupils. We want to look at what he's looking at. He's looking in this corner, so we're going to start looking at this corner, following his eyes. And, oh, there's the next scene. You always, always, always follow the character's eyes. If the character is looking this way, you look this way. Human thing. You just look at that. That's why they can get away with like this rougher stuff, because we're not looking there. We're looking here. We don't even see Ranboo. And then our eyes have been here the whole time. And Sock has rotated Ranboo up to fit that too. We also get this sort of slanted composition along with the grid being slanted. So in this image, nothing is truly stable, right? So a stable composition, let's say if this is our canvas, right, would be an up and down, what you would expect, horizontal and vertical. But in here, we have this tilted, off-kilter sort of thing. So we kind of feel unsteady by this. This feels ominous. And then Ranboo is also tilted on this axis, making him feel awkward and weirdly positioned. So we kind of feel unsteady about him too. Here's a good example of the white. So you can see their whole outline. Even this block is outlined in white first, and then they layered colors on top of it. And in this scene, I think his tail is the only thing moving, which doesn't draw much attention, but I do love how they do tiny bits of movement instead of full pieces. And then we get that nice, another just shade on top of Ranboo, just to show that he's below. He is being tiny compared to whatever the heck this is above. And this is where we can start seeing the grain, right? So right here, I say like this. This area has the least grain. This least noise area, right? This has a lot of noise and this has a lot of noise. So our eye is kind of focusing where there's no noise, right, happening. Without Sock using lines is pushing our eye to this area. They are controlling the composition. I know with Sadist, we use more of lines to direct the eye. They're using noise. So it's just a different way to do it. A different way you can think about how to do it. They're also using this really bright highlight against the dark background to bring your eye this way too. We can see the transition here. We're focusing on this area. So when in the transition, we are still focusing on where we want to go, which the whole subject matter of this animation is the eyes. So it is important that we're focusing on the eyes. Also, everywhere but this square is grainy, right? It is noise. So our eye is focused on here. Even if we got lost in the transition, our eye would circle back around to the eyes because that is where the least amount of noise is. And we get this nice shadow on top, another stamp, another layer. You get him kind of bringing the block down. We kind of follow it, but we're kind of mainly focusing on this area. It kind of just gets rid of the image. More grainy. We're focusing more on the eyes again. The background is not noisy, but he is. So it's almost like he is uncertain with himself, while the background is pretty solid. And it also fits the words of the song. So, but I can't remember why. He is uncertain with himself. He is unsure with himself. So he is very grainy and very noisy, but everything else around him is not. And we can see so if this is the central focus, when we switch transitions to here, we're already kind of in this area. And this is another very good example of shape, where they gave the form and the shape of Ranboo first, and then they just layered this on top. You don't see this when you're looking at this, you don't see this as a bald head like it is. You see it as just, oh, it's just Ranboo with hair, because they had this implied line. You kind of understand, oh yeah, that's a hairline. Even though if you're kind of just staring at this, you're like, wait a moment, is this man bald? Who knows? I don't. And this is very interesting. I really like this sort of transition here, because you're kind of like looking in this general area. You transfer over to Ranboo. You kind of get this kind of, you're trying to look at where he's going to look. And this is very interesting of controlling the eye here, because what Sock does is they have you focus on Ranboo, and then they have you focusing on where he's going to look, and he's going to look over here. They're going to put the main subject matter over here, right? We know because of just eye direction and what the animator wants us to think that they're going to put the main subject matter of the image over here. But what Sock does is they take Ranboo here and they turn him away. After we have transferred our eyes here, they take that opportunity to move Ranboo over here to the next image. So they move Ranboo without us noticing until it's too late for us, and then we then they can transition easier. So see, this is where they get this nice, they block off the canvas here, so we are focusing literally only on mainly the chest because it's brightly colored. And we're already looking this way, so we're going to focus on the chest here. And this is where they push Ranboo all the way to the side, where they're focusing on the chest, focusing on this area. This is where they turn Ranboo. So Sock is very clever here. They have you focus on this chest, so when they turn Ranboo, you don't notice it as much. You don't follow his eyes around, because then he closes off. It's almost like he's remembering and he doesn't want to remember. Ha ha ha, funny story. But then we have a nice little just blocked off shape. We're not focusing on here as the next image comes in. We're already focusing on this area. We're not even looking at Ranboo, and we're focusing here. This is very nice to translate back because we will be focusing here. We're like, oh, look, here's the TNT that we were just focusing on. I wonder who's holding it. Oh, it's Ranboo. Who's this? Oh, there's a dream. You kind of focus here, but this Ranboo is obviously staring this way. So what do? We transfer back over to the main Ranboo. So you have just been moved from this Ranboo to that Ranboo without you knowing by just the simple TNT. Then when it transitions over here, it's less sudden because you're kind of in that middle area, right? So even if you didn't fully, you start like noticing Ranboo in this. So you're like, oh, he's sad, but you're kind of still in this general area. You're not fully into Ranboo, but you're not fully out of this one either. You're kind of in this middle area because you get this kind of like, oh, he's looking here. He's looking at Ranboo, but you're kind of in this area. You're in between them because those are the two eyes you can see. So then when we transition, we can easily follow the smoke up to this Ranboo standing, right? Breaking up the shape of the smoke and the motion of the scene of the background. The motion of the background is going that way. But since he's standing up straight, he is breaking up the motion of it. And in the background here, you see a lot of noise happening while Ranboo is relatively noiseless. Again, we can see the shape, just the simple shape of a suit, nothing really complex. And we get this nice movement of the tie and the tail. So if we rewind, you can see how it kind of just focus around. You're like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's Ranboo. Goes to black. And then we get this nice smoke effect. I really like this smoke. I think it does just enough. I think the idea that the noise is at the bottom of the smoke instead of at the top is a very nice. The background is simplistic, but you understand. You understand this is probably man-made or destruction. While this is the background part of the image. It's very, very clean, very simple. Fits everything very nicely. Very noisy around here, almost like he doesn't know what happened with the landscape around him. And this is rolling too, so this is more of like feeling like the scene is changing. Since the lines are, the war is already won, why do we go on? You kind of get the idea this is doomsday, which the background implies that. And Ranboo standing there kind of like defeated, going that downward. He feels more slouched than anything. You kind of get that feeling. He clears up, the background fades. You get this nice silhouette again. Background, not noise at all. He is uncertain though, because you can tell with just the expression, the more slouched body position, and the noise on him. Again, that's very nice. I very like that. And this is just repeated animation. This is not anything crazy. Just a simple repeated animation, so you don't have to do much. Do less work, you're going to do less work. If you need to do more work, then you need to do it. But if you can, You're going to cut back on work. That's understandable. And this is where the words are just accusing them, accusing Ranboo, accusing yourself, and we're going to start pulling in. So this is very important, where the noise is coming in on Ranboo more, while we're going to start pulling in. He raises his hands here, so we get from more of a slouch to him starting to pull up, pull into himself. So then when we zoom in, we get more of that pull in sort of action. His hands are already coming up more. We get this nice, he's going to start boxing himself in. So the canvas, the outline of the canvas here, is going to box him in too. So then we feel more enclosed, just like Ranboo does. So then he brings his hands up, and as soon as he puts it to his head, it's going to close in a bit more. We've got this. We get another zoom in. Very nice. This is, again, with the shapes. So here's the hand. You can tell this is a hand, even though it's just a white shape. Here's a hand. You can tell there's a hand with just the outline here. You're just like, yep, hand. You can tell this is the nose and half his face. You can tell there's still hair here, even though there's no indication. Just with the implied lines. Closed in a bit more. You close it a bit more. You get that overlapping shape here with the hair. You get the overlapping shape here. You get the hair kind of standing more upwards, kind of like he's pushing his hair in, even though we don't get any of that, truly. But you understand what's happening. And then as we go more in, he's going to tense a bit more. So what happens here is we get a quick shake back and forth. So we get him move this way and we move this way. This is a very nice shake. I really like it. It gives that sort of unsteady movement. We get this kind of movement, which makes you kind of feel like he's shaking his head. But also to add to that, Sock ends up doing more of like horizontal lines in the background with this purple noise that they use later on for Enderwalk Ranboo a lot more, to kind of give that same sort of motion to the background as they give to Ranboo here. Also, Ranboo is covered in noise in the head, in the arms. Like he shakes this way, we get a zoom in, we start seeing the faded lines coming in. Tell them what you've done, right? We got that nice shake, and then he opens his eyes. So let's see that fully. So we get this nice closing in, and then we get that flash of just coming in, out. Then we get another shake, just nice. He starts opening his eyes, and then we get the Enderwalk Ranboo. Now, this Ranboo, the blue here is more of a green reddish tint, right? But with the Enderwalk, we get more purple, more vibrant, more saturated look. This is more of a bluish purple, and this is where his hands come off his head, and we get that opened eyes. It feels, even though we're closer to Ranboo, we feel more pushback at this point. Bright colors help with that. The hands coming off of his head help with that. We kind of feel like we're going to be moving back outwards, his eyes opening up wide. So then when we do go to the next scene, which is Ranboo realizing, oh shit, I'm an Enderwalk, that's bad. We get that scared look. We get the hands coming back down here. And we get this very panic look because we are so close to his face now, but we still feel sort of like, oh God, oh God, oh God. We don't feel as trapped anymore. We feel like we can somehow escape with this because his hands aren't closing in on him, but we are still boxed in, so it is still really fucking scary. And then this is where I think is absolutely genius. They've been using shape language this whole time. We've been using shapes, we've been using stamps, we've been using simple shape language. What Sock has done to show unstable is instead of using shapes, they use lines. They use these purple lines to indicate Enderwalk Ranboo. And I think it establishes a very unsteady emotion comes out of you here. Because in the animation universe, shapes are normal. Lines are not. Our brain has been tricked into thinking lines like this are not normal. So when our brain sees it in the animation, we're like, what's that unsettling thing? It's lines. But we're not used to seeing it in this animation. So it is unsettling. And that is very useful. If they had added lines to their main section with normal Ranboo, I feel like this wouldn't be as unsettling. But since lines are so rare in it, or almost non-existent, this is perfect. And how they use line and shape, they're basically a master at it. They're amazing at it. So then we get that, we fade, and then we get a nice, we get from that really navy blue, that dark kind of like ominous blue, to this kind of like calming blue, right? Really unsaturated. And then we get the potion bottle. They much like this potion bottle effect, and I'm not going to argue with them. It's really cool. I love it too. But you can see this in their redesign your logo animation as well. They really like the potion bottle. And you know what? They do a good job at it, so keep it up. Oh, it's amazing. We circle around. We're going to be circling like this. And we're going to be following the shine around. We get his eyes within the shine. We're just going to be following the shine around with his eyes. Again, this is very minimalistic. Very nice, just calming blue. We follow him up, follow the eyes. The face doesn't really do much. They're just trying to indicate that we're going this way. You're mainly focusing on the rotation of the bottle and that kind of awkward angle. We're moving up and around still. And this is important. We're going to be moving up here. And at this point, you're kind of following this line. You're following his eyes. His eyes are going to disappear. You're going to be starting to follow the neck of the bottle this way. You're still kind of here, but you're kind of starting to move more this way. Like this. You're kind of moving in this sort of path. Which is perfect for the animation, because the animation wants you to follow this neck up and kind of looking of where the bottle came from, which leads to where Ranboo is. So Ranboo replaces the bottle quickly leaves the screen, and you get this lighter version of Ranboo, this sort of calming version of Ranboo. Sock uses these very calming colors of blues, very known for calm, very known of all that. So it's very interesting how they do this out of that first, like, sort of anxious scene, anxious kind of trapped feeling directly into, like, this calming color palette. They have rain coming in, which rain is usually seen for calm. But what I did notice, was reviewing this so much, is there's noise in the background here. There's not much noise back here, but there's noise around his head, which is very interesting because of the next scene that's coming up. So he's taking calm breath, he's trying to calm down, but this noise behind him is increasing directly. This noise is an indication, I think, of the chaos in his head. Just the noise in his head, almost. So the static and the grain, the noise, which is called, is the symbolization of the noise and static in his head. So when we keep going, we get that sort of, he's still stressed, his eyebrows go down. We get that more of the anxious feeling here. Again, the rain's coming this way, but he's more of like a straight line here, so it's kind of off-putting again. We get this sort of movement like this, opposite to where the potion bottle was moving. That flick of the head up, him trying to calm down, but can't. So then we get the line version. The line version of the purple, which is the Enderwalk. So it's unsettling with the line version and that very dark sort of trapping color again. That just flashes, sort of indicating the sort of scared version that we're trying to avoid or trying to get at, whichever one. But you see the lines again. Lines bad. Fades. Ranboo is in the same spot. So if we wanted to go back, he's calm. We get this sort of Ranboo in this spot, right? His hands are up. He has claws. We kind of understand that. So then when we fade to here, it's a very easy transition to fade into this. It almost looks like he's in the exact same pose, but now it's normal. What I did notice is, TNT and disc seem to be moving on the same layer, while the notebook and the pages seem to move on a different layer. So that is very interesting of what he feels like he can control and what he can affect versus what he can't affect, being the discs and the TNT. This is going to be recycled animation right here with him in the tail. This is very nice animation. I actually love these sort of like background shots with him being animated in front with the background shots of things moving in the background. That's probably my favorite part of this whole thing. Again, with the hands being shapes, just indication. We get the first indication of hair here, but even that is like very minimalistic. You still, like, there's no hairline here, but you understand that, oh yeah, there's hair here. You know, you there's no hairline here, but you understand, oh yeah, hair. So that's very interesting. So yeah, we get that movement, and it fades. The panic room. So what happens here is these walls and the floor are very grainy, but then this back wall and this top wall, or the top ceiling, is not. This is all gradient, but it also is slightly skewed. So you kind of feel that unsettled feeling again. It's not straight back. It's slightly skewed. It's not like a perfect trace back. And you get that sort of grainy on the walls, sort of the unsteadiness of the room. You got the unsteadiness of Ranboo on the side with the grain. And then we get the line. So he is completely blacked out. Our shapes are completely blacked out. And the line comes in and he is turning this way sort of to look at Ranboo and look at us as the viewer. We get this nice grain on the side of pointing inward. So we're focusing on this bright purple. It is also very unsettling because it is the only line. And then it fades out with the line and we get fade back out to the shapes. And then we get this nice flip. I love this page flip. Can we just appreciate this page flip? We get this grain coming this way and we flip it, right? And it's just a beautiful page flip. Coming this way to this sort of same color as the Hinderwalk Ranboo, sort of line dream smile. We have now associated, our brains have associated this color and this animatic to being unsettling. So when we see it, we're like, oh no, that's bad. And then we get this book, which we now are like, oh, smiley face bad. We've got this book and it slightly spins. So whenever something's not static, like Ranboo here is being a little static, just staying in the same spot. He feels steady, even though everything around him is unsteady. We get this sort of like, oh, he's holding out. Oh, he's okay. He's fine. He's fine. He's fine. Everything's okay. But everything around him is unsteady, especially this book who spins, which is fun. And then he starts to fade out. And we get this covering the vibrant eyes. So, roll credits, right? And we have this sort of moving inwards, closed off. We get the idea that this is Enderwalk. We cover the eyes. And then we're going to forget the pain. So this is forgetting. Kind of closes in on himself. Then we zoom out to non-Enderwalk Ranboo. And he's pulling his hands away. But it's more of like, he's going to get like a very confused expression where he's like, I didn't want to remember that. Little sparkles. Nothing in the background here is grainy, only Ranboo is. So it's kind of that unstable sort of feeling within him. And his hands are very grainy in this. Sort of the story between the hands and the eyes. Because we get this and he kind of forgets. But then we get Enderwalk Ranboo getting his hand swiping across the page. And he now Enderwalk Ranboo, instead of normal Ranboo covering Enderwalk Ranboo's eyes, it is Enderwalk Ranboo covering normal Ranboo's eyes. Right here, and they cover his eyes. We get that nice white shape. We understand this is a hand, and we just follow this up. It's very simple. We just follow that up, and we follow it up further up the arm to the eye. We're like, ooh, nice eye. I like your eyes, sir. We just stay on the face here. This is I very like this next scene. We get this sort of hunched over, kind of like he's tired expression, like he's tired of fighting for control, but he's still doing it. Kind of this pissed off. You get his eyes looking this way, so we know we're probably going to be here next. Sock does the same thing as they did with before with normal Ranboo, but with Enderwalk Ranboo. So that same sort of thing, not as closed off. And this is honestly one of my favorite interpretations of character dream. It reminds me of the Owl Lady from Song of the Sea. That was always really freaky to me, the character design for the owl mother or whatever in Song of the Sea. And this is what their dream reminds me of. And seeing that is really freaky. I'm gonna not, if you haven't seen something to see in that animation, yeah, it's amazing. But the owl mother is crazy creepy. And that's kind of what Dream reminds me of here. Kind of, I think it's mostly the hunched over, like, creepy smile, like, creepy face. You get Enderwalk Ranboo, he looked up here, so you kind of focused here. So when he looks away, you're kind of like, oh shit, and you kind of are looking more at this because they don't do as much as the job to focus you here, but you kind of focusing on Dream, kind of looking back. You understand that he's looking back at Ranboo just because of the slight tilt and the grain. This being unstable, both of them being very unstable, and you get that smile again. It's a very interesting smile. It's all over. Enderwalk Ranboo kind of being paranoid by the smile, not gonna lie. He's like, oh no, I've done it again. He's gonna murder me, and Dream's like, yep, I am. Just not in the way you expect. I like the shape here, very nice shape. This is all one shape. It's very pretty. Very pretty shape. It fades out to only a smile. Enderwalk Ranboo looking concerned, if I do say myself. A lot of his grain has disappeared, but it's still a little bit there. And then we get a nice switch. So what happens here is you're kind of focusing on this smile here because Enderwalk Ranboo's looking here. So then when we switch to normal Ranboo, you're kind of already looking in this general area. You're kind of looking between them, but you're kind of looking in this general area. And you're like, oh, he's being concerned again. He's being anxious, boy. And he's going to look up here. He brings his hands up. This is more of like a universal kind of like gesture of like, please stop. Please spare me. Mercy. Begging, sort of that. So when he comes up like this, we get this nice understanding. He's closing in on himself, kind of like Enderwalk Ranboo was, but instead of that sort of pissed off expression that Enderwalk Ranboo was giving us, we get more of a pleading with the hands coming up, more of a pleading, like, please don't do this to me, please stop making me go into Enderwalk state sort of feeling. We get a nice transition to these pages, which I love all these pages, and we get this nice, very subtle grain of the page, so we can get this, like, understanding that this is a book. I love all these page turns. All of the page turns in this is absolutely beautiful. Where we're kind of focusing on the page. So then when we transition, we're still here. We don't have to move. Our eye doesn't have to move. And when he leans up, we kind of follow this pen. We kind of stay in this general area. Very nice, very nice. We get a lot of grain around his head. Again, because he is unstable. We're writing this down. He is anxious as he's very anxious writing this down. He's very anxious being like, oh shit. Again, a lot of grain around his head. So then when we do transition to the Enderwalk real fast, we get that purple, we get that sort of pinkish, we get this like more saturated. The background goes real dark, but that grain in the background fades, right? So we have that intense grain here, the intense noise. And then as he's going into the Enderwalk state, the grain lessens on the background. And he is less grainy, like he's less trying to hide. Comes back out into reality. His eyes are grainy. The background on this side's grainy. Like half of him is unstable, but half of him is. I very like this. He freaks out, of course, backs away. And this transitions to the next. So we were very close to him. Now he's backing away into the panic room. We can tell by these walls, right? So when he backs up, we kind of feel this sort of isolation feeling as he backs up and the camera gets further away from him. He's very grainy, since he's unstable. He feels trapped, so he looks around. He's like, oh, fuck. It's not going to end well. I'm in a panic room. I shouldn't have made this. Why was the walls obsidian? I don't know. Again, putting the hands on the head, more of like trapping himself, because right now he's the only one grainy, while the background is not. And then we get this nice little sort of fighting. He feels like he's fighting here, right? He gets this sort of fighting pose, like he's gonna fight the world, but there's nothing in the world for him to fight. He's only fighting himself here. So then it fades to white. it sort of feels like they're underwater for a bit because of this texture that they overlaid. Sock overlaid. Feels like Ranboo's underwater. And it's very nice. The hair drifts beautifully as if they're underwater. Very beautiful. I do like this line here to indicate hair. I think that very adds a lot. And it's almost like Ranboo's imagining he is underwater. Like he's so panicked that he imagines he's underwater. He opens his eyes and the whole background is grainy. The whole background is unstable. It is raining and the smoke, right? So what I was thinking when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, Ranboo's smoking. When water hits him, he burns. Like the whole background is unstable. But we still get that sort of calming blue from him before, but we still get that sort of scared of the rain, scared of water sort of feeling as we did when we first heard the lines. And we're hearing it now when we're seeing the animation now. The same calming blue, so our brain's like, oh, we should be calm. But the words are saying otherwise, and sort of the background is saying otherwise with the grain. But we get that more calming expression from Ranboo too. Fades. And then we get repeat. So this is very nice. I love this repeating. Scared of the memories. Same panic room. This is a little bit different. It's not as repeating as before. This time there is the same line, right? But they flopped it. So one side is one and they're going to meet in the middle. It's just to add on to make it slightly different. I think it adds a lot. I really do like that they put two in and they both kind of like merge into one, sort of showing that there's two sides fighting and one's less purple and one's more purple. And we get that same flip of the smiley face in the book. The same book's turn. Guessing this is the chorus of the song. I don't know anything about songs. And then we get the opening of the vibrant eyes. These are very stunning, very bright, very nice. And then here, we see this red. And you might be like, oh, Underwalk Ranboo. But no, this red is an indication of normal Ranboo. So this is an indication that normal Ranboo is trying to cover the vibrant eyes, trying to cover up the underwalk state, trying not to let anyone see it. So we cover up the eyes, we come out, and the hands are sort of like sheltering normal Ranboo, sort of closing him off in a way, I think, where the hands are keeping him enclosed. So that's very nice. It also, you are focusing only on this area. So when it zooms out, we get Ranboo and we get nice. God, I love this running scene. It's just a repeat of animation. I love the grass below him. I love this community house shot. The lines come in beautifully. You can tell who is who with the silhouette. You can tell this is Dream. You got Toho. You got Fundy. I think this is Quackity. I hope it's Quackity or I'm going to look stupid. I love this portal in the background and this tree. Very simplistic, but also you understand what it is without having to think too much, which is very useful here. You got that grainy texture behind the community house and leading to the community house, like he is unsure about it, which he is. So, and then you get the Lamamber flag, which is so beautiful. If you haven't paused on this scene yet, right? If you haven't paused on this scene and just looked at this Lamamber flag, please do, because it is absolutely stunning. The colors they used, the layering they used is absolutely stunning how they did this. But you see the obsidian grid, you see the burnt Lamamber flag. It's very pop in color. You get these cloud effect in the background, sort of that smoke. And then this is all grainy. It's everything in the background's grainy. And it's him running from his problems, running from all of this unstableness. And then we get to this. So we get to this end of the run, and he has this purple sort of overlay on him, on Ranboo, that sort of tells that he's really fighting that underwalk state. Closes it on his hands again. His hands close on his head again. We get this nice turn. I really like this. I like how they turn him so much. It's very nice. A very quick cuts to turn. Blocking out of shape here. A blocking out of shape here. And we get this purple outline on him. So you kind of feel like he's slowly turning, which he is. So that's very nice. Yeah. So then we get him kind of shaking his head like, no, I don't want to be it. I don't want to go to sleep, please. So these hands are more calming right now. So they're more just simple, calm, sort of just lightly pressing. But when he starts going into the underwalk state, you can see it kind of gets more aggressive. He starts like pinching into his head, kind of like angrily, like he just wants something. He's more angry. You see the eyebrows go down. You get that sort of like mean expression, like he just wants, he's desperate. Like Underwalk Ranboo is a lot more desperate than normal Ranboo. And then you get a nice flash of dream. It's a very nice flash of dream. It's very easy, very simple. And then you can get his smiley face here. His hands come off his head. Same in that sort of like clenched sort of feeling. And you get that panicked sort of look. Fades with dream smiley faces. Kind of like the two smiley faces that Ranboo used to put at the end of his lures. And then we fade out. That is the beauty of Vibrant Eyes. It is very beautiful. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend highly going back and watching it now, especially now that you've seen this video. Vibrant Eyes is a beautiful animation. The song is amazing too, so please go give that a like, go give it a comment, say yes, amazing job guys, good job. And if you are so inclined, maybe even like this video if you want to see me do more animation, or leave a comment on what animation to recommend. And I can see if I can contact that artist. Some artists have gone off the grid, so I mean, you know. And maybe hit the subscribe button. I do art too. I do animatics and storyboards. Yeah, and I also live stream. So come by some of my streams sometimes if you're interested. We can talk more animations. But big shout out to Sock for letting me do their animation. It's really fun to do. I know this is a long time coming. I know live stream people, you guys have been waiting for like a couple months now. But I hope you enjoy this. Have a happy Merry Christmas, Merry Holidays, Happy Holidays, all of the above, whatever. I don't know, happy birthday. Whatever it is. I hope you have a happy day. And yeah, go give Sock some love. They deserve it. They spent way longer than this whole video on this. So go give them some love. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.